In this video, we talk about Kiku and Izo. Kiku and Izo are both interesting characters to say the least. I find that Izo is a strong, independent, calm, loyal, and a dutiful individual. These were all evidence from the times we've seen him with Odin as well as in the battles in Marineford. The hype from the not so surprising fact that Izo came to Wano has died down for me, and I still have a few unanswered questions in mind when we saw glimpses of Izo on the way to Wano, but we'll talk about those later on in the video. While Kiku is usually indecisive about big things, which tells me she might be on the weaker end when it comes to a battle of wills, she's physically strong, she's warm, a bit soft, upbeat, and friendly. Also, the hype from Kiku's sword that cuts even the enemy's soul has died down for me as well, but I'm still amazed because of how uncharacteristic it was for Kiku to be so aggressive towards Kanjuro when he confronted them at the back of the island. But anyway, let's dive a bit deeper into both of these characters and get right into the meat of the video. We last saw them at the top of the Onigashima skull, along with all the other scabbards and minks. But I still love how Kiku was so aggressive when she decided to kick Kanjuro's butt, as well as how badass Izo was when he shot swords in half. But King's sword was probably so strong, even without haki in it, for it to survive a shot from Izo. And with that being said, I am most impressed that Kiku managed to pierce Kaido's hand back in chapter 987. This was the best feat of any of the scabbards right now, in my opinion, of course. I believe out of all of the scabbards, Kiku might be the best character that should go down and fight with Big Mom. Just because of all the characteristics of her sword, it can even pierce through the opponent's soul, which makes me think about Kiku slashing up Zeus and the other homies. They might be permanently injured since they are souls, and this might be a better scenario than Brooke slashing up the homies in half and getting a piece of it for Nami, so she could store it and use it within her Klimatat. And this is because I still hang on to the fact that I want Nami to get Zeus and Prometheus for a power up, but in such a way that she won't be stealing them completely, which she would need Brooke or Kiku for. Because Big Mom has taken so many L's since Fishman Island, and stealing a half of Zeus and Prometheus might be a better option than taking them whole, so that she could still have her power up while Big Mom gets to save face even for just a little bit. Now, continuing on to this train of thought though, I was also wondering what would happen if Kiku's sword slashes a soul woman. At first, I was thinking that Big Mom would take more damage than the usual victim of this sword, or maybe she won't even need to use Haki or Ryuo to cut Big Mom. And I'm still considering that idea, that her sword might be enough to do this alone with no Haki at all, and that if she does choose to use Haki on it, the added Haki would just do more damage. And she might be able to do sufficient enough damage onto Big Mom, and because of this, Kiku could have Big Mom and Perospero retreating in his Candy Slug, breaking off the alliance effectively and saving Big Mom in the process. That got me to thinking that this could be Perospero's role in Wano, because Perospero was originally against the Yonko alliance anyway. Now, let's talk about one-on-one fights. As for Izo though, I don't see him taking on any one-on-one fights at the moment. We only saw him provide backup in the Marineford War, and aside from his marksmanship, we don't know about the full extent of his abilities and whether if he's good enough to take on monsters one-on-one. So I think his role might be more of providing backup from long range and being great in group fights that he will take part in. Also, I spent a great deal of time talking about Kiku because I believe that with her sword, she could potentially have a bigger impact in this whole war compared to Izo. I'm sure that Izo is strong enough to take on Tobiropo level members, but I don't see him fighting one on one. If anything, he might fight with the samurai of Orochi's squad or the Oniwa Banshu. I believe those to be great matchups for him, but aside from these, and providing backup while clearing waves of fodder, maybe a fight with Sasaki or Who's Who could be a great thing. Also, we could learn a lot from these scenarios, considering Izo and Marco should be famous enough to be respected even by the Tobiropo level members. They've been with Whitebeard for a long while, so they should also know about the commanders in other Yonko crews. I feel like Izo won't be playing a gigantic role, but he won't be playing small in this arc like he did in Marineford either. I'm convinced that he would have a decent impact in this war. As for Kiku though, I feel like Kiku's energy would be wasted fighting any character other than the Yonko commanders and the Yonkos themselves. But if I had to come up with a fight, I would say that I would like for Kiku to fight against Orochi when he does decide to move again, or maybe even ulti. And with her abilities, I believe that she would have more impact considering that Big Mom might be weak against her blade. Not to say that Big Mom would be helpless when dealing with her, but applying the same logic of Pokemon games here, Big Mom might take double damage from her attacks because of the nature of Big Mom's powers and Kiku's katana. It would be better if Kiku sticks to fighting either one of the Yonko. We've seen her deal damage to Kaido, so she should be able to handle Big Mom too. I feel like she and Izo would stick to fighting Kaido and Jack up top, the Onigashima skull, but if Kiku gets hit and blows past the skull, she could end up in the activity hall and decide to fight with Big Mom. Just the thought interests me so much, and when it becomes a reality, I would feel so hyped up for it. Moving past the war, I think that Kiku would be a great ally and join the Straw Hat Grand Fleet. I feel like it's unlikely for any of the scabbards to get a bounty from this war unless they joined Luffy's crew. But as for Izo, he might have a better chance of joining the Straw Hat crew. Not that I think he would. He has already done it with Whitebeard, so it should be unlikely that he does it again. But I just think that it's possible. Obviously, he's very loyal. He had a short interaction with Luffy back in Marineford when he was part of the group that provided backup for Luffy. He has a slight chance of becoming Luffy's Nakama, but I feel like with Carrot and Yamato in the picture, Oda might have Izo join the Grand Fleet just like Kiku would. But either way, Izo has a better chance of joining the Straw Hats as a Nakama when compared to Kiku, because he became a representative for Whitebeard before, and he could do it again. Another thing that could support this, since he was on Whitebeard's ship for a while, Izo could already have a bounty placed on him, and it could just increase. But no harm done here since he should already be used to it by now, making him one of the scabbards suited to join the Straw Hat crew. Anyway, I don't have high hopes for this theory since we already have Usopp for a sniper. Now, before we even talk about Izo's former bounty or current bounty, I recall that I didn't mention what I think the bounties of Neko and Ino would be if they ever got theirs. So, as a guess, I would estimate them to have about 850 million apiece. Anyway, moving back to Izo and Kiku, it makes you wonder how big of a bounty Izo has. I would assume, since he uses hockey and has been a pirate for a while, that he has at least 400 million belly placed on his head. I would be willing to say that it could go up to about 500 million because the bounty of the late ace was 550 million. And since Izo seemed more of a backup than a main fighter that could go one on one with the admirals like Ace could, I am assuming that his bounty is a bit less than Ace's bounty. But after the war in Wano, it could go up to as much as 700 million. Unless he shows us that he's a real monster too, which I believe to be unlikely. Now, for Kiku, I highly doubt that she would join the Straw Hats and get a bounty of her own, because I think they would only get bounties if they become pirates that become well known enough that even the world government recognizes them. Yes, I know that Drake could report what went down in Wano, and because of that, the world government places a bounty on the scabbards anyway. So, if she does get a bounty, I think it would be about 1.1 billion belly. I think that's a conservative amount considering Kiku's abilities. As I mentioned these things, I'm actually thinking about her armor too. It might have characteristics we don't know about, which is unlikely, but it's a very fun thing to think about. Obviously, each and every one of the Scabbards are battle tested characters that is at least of Tobiropo or Vice Admiral level in terms of battle strength and would boost the overall battle strength of the Straw Hat crew if any of them decide to join or is invited to join. Now, before we end the video, I would like to know what you guys think about the person wearing lipstick on the way to Onigashima. This panel was in chapter 981. Do you think that this is Azo and that this was just one of those very minor, very rare mistakes that we see occasionally in the manga and the anime as well? Or is it someone else? Because the lipstick pattern is different, the hair on one side is lighter and the other side is black. So it's weird to say the least. Anyway, this seems to be a great point to wrap the video up in. I hope you enjoyed it. Crush like if you did, as if you were Kiku crushing Kanjuro. Intentional, decisive, and forceful. Comment down below what you think is a great topic to talk about in one of the upcoming videos. And if you love One Piece, subscribe to the channel so it could grow. Hit the notifications button because on the next video, we are going to talk about Ashura Doji, Kawamatsu, and Denjiro. It's gonna be fun, and I hope to see you in that conversation. Stay safe now. Peace!